ஹர நம பார்வதி பதயே ஹர ஹர மகாதேவா. தென்னாடுடைய சிவனே போற்றி, எந்நாட்டவர்க்கும் இறைவா போற்றி. ஆரூர் அமர்ந்த அரசே போற்றி, சீரார் திருவையாரா போற்றி போற்றி. விண்ணாளும் தேவர்க்கும் மேலாய வேதியனை, மண்ணாளும் மன்னவர்க்கும் மாண்பாகி நின்றானை, தன்னார் தமிழளிக்கும் தன்பாண்டி நாட்டானை, பெண்ணாளும் பாகனை பேணு பெருந்துறையில், கண்ணார் கடல் காட்டி நாயேனை ஆட்கொண்ட அண்ணாமலையானை பாடுதுங்கான் அம்மானாய், சித்தம் தெளிவீர்கள் அத்தன் ஆரூரை பத்தி மலர்த்தூவ முத்தியாகுமே. எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம். எல்லாம் வல்ல ஆரூர் அஜபா நடன கமலவசந்த தியாகராஜ பெருமான் திருவருளும் எமையாளும் தர்மபுர ஆதீன குருமகா சன்னிதானங்களுடைய குருவருளையும் சிந்திக்கிறேன். It gives me immense pleasure to be here today evening, as suggested by our very revered Swamiji, on this very historic occasion of the Sri Peetam's journey. Swamiji suggested that I present my little knowledge, or I share my little knowledge on a very prominent part of Varaha Puranam, which is celebrated as Kaishika Puranam. This is an outcome of a very casual discussion with Swamiji almost a month back, when I was telling him or sharing my views on this particular episode detailed out in the Varaha Puranam. Swamiji suggested that it should be shared with the Sishyas of Sri Peetam, and thus happened today's evening. This particular Puranam is a very sacred part of the Varaha Mahapuranam. For the Sri Vaishnavites, the commentators and the acharyas of the Sri Vaishnava lineage observe that Sriman Narayana, out of his utmost compassion for his creations, gave them the Vedas. For the Vaishnavites, it all starts with the Vedas, where Sriman Narayana suggests the ways to understand him, to understand one's own self, to know about the bondings, the ties which keeps us tethered to this world, understand the nature of the material universe, win over it with the grace of an acharya, and finally reach Vaikunta. This, as perceived by the Ramanujacharya school of Visishtadvaitam, becomes the quintessence of the blessings called a birth. Every Anma is required to understand the Vedas at depth and interpret it on the ways the acharyas have explained about it, attain what is called as Artha Panchaka Jnanam, the knowledge of 5 different entities, which includes Paramatma, Jivatma, Upaya, Phalam, and the Virodhi Swarupam. To understand about the Almighty, and in this case Sriman Narayana, to understand his nature, his qualities, his attributes, thereby understand that we are all creations, which is the second entity here, the Jiva Swarupa, the nature, quality, restrictions, abilities of the Jivatmas. The third in line is to understand about how to attain him, the Upaya, the path to be taken. The fourth is what do you do after achieving him, which according to Ramanuja school of philosophy talks about the eternal service that you do at his feet at Vaikunta. That's the fourth entity. The fifth is, after knowing all of these 4, you wonder what are you doing still here without serving him. That is where you understand that your need, your desire, your lust for everything that is material is keeping you grounded to this universe. And hence you don't understand the vast supreme nature of Vaikunta. And at times, even if you understand, you don't make an attempt to reach him. That is the Virodhi Swarupa. So, the knowledge about all these 5 entities help you achieve him. This is according to the Ramanuja school of philosophy. So, here, in order to understand these 5 titles, the Artha Panchaka Jnanam, it is believed that the Vedas were gifted to us. And as the 4 Vedas were too elaborate and needed tools for interpretation, it is said that Niruktam, Chandasu, Jyotisham, Kalpam, Vyakaranam, and these angas of Vedas were also gifted to us. The Vedas are core knowledge which needs tools to be understood. Those tools help us understand the Vedas for what they are. And that is where you have these Upangas, Angas and Upangas for Vedas. And in the list of Upangas, Angas and Upangas, you have the Vedanta, which are the Upanishads, and finally, Itihasas and Puranas also. Again, the Vedas are too vast. The language is at times a bit challenging. And the Vedas have restrictions as to who gets to read it and more. So it does not seem to serve the purpose as being that key knowledge system for one and all. In order to fill this gap, it is believed that the Puranas and Itihasas were given. The Itihasas are slightly more authoritative because those were authored as and when the episodes happened. In Indian tradition, after the four Vedas, we have two Itihasas, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, both of which, as you all know, were authored when those characters were alive and active. Ramayana was authored by Valmiki, Lava and Kucha were trained in it, and those two little kids reached out to Rama. In the Darbar, Rama was an audience when Ramayana was first sang. So he was pretty much there to approve it. Then you have Mahabharata, which was also documented as it happened by Vyasacharya. So these two are called as Itihasas because it has been approved by the characters who are discussed in that work. Then you have, next in line, the Puranas, which are 18 in number, which are all recordings of episodes, incidences, many eons after they actually happened. It was initially transferred as an oral tradition in the Rishi Paramparai till such times that at some point Vedavyasa thought that this extremely ancient school of knowledge has got to be documented, and that is how were born the 18 Mahapuranas. In those 18 Mahapuranas, several avatars of Mahavishnu is discussed. It speaks his praise, it tells why he is important, it tells how he had rescued people in need and more. In that list, you have several incidences where Mahavishnu quite literally spoke. And in those advices that he gave, which were very crisp in many occasions, the Vaishnava Acharyas bring in a scale of comparison as to which is that one particular advice of Mahavishnu which is suitable for us. They start from the highest seat in order, which is the Vaikuntha Vasa. That space where Mahavishnu resides as Sriman Narayana, where he is attended to by his three wives, Sri Devi, Bhumi Devi and Neela Devi, seated on the Adisesha Paryanka. He is also attended to by Adisesha, Garuda, Vishwaksena and many of those celestials. So he is Vaikuntha Vasa at Vaikuntham, where he of course advises, where his teachings are heard, but those are reserved for people who have made it up to Vaikuntham. It is not useful for others who are not a part of Vaikuntham. So Vaishnava Acharya says, forget it, it is not going to be of any use to us. May he keep telling a lot there. We are not going, it's not audible for us. So we needn't worry about what he says at Vaikuntham. Let's get run with it. The next in the long list is of course Thirupparkadal, which is called the Kshirabdi. That is where Mahavishnu, attended at his feet by Mahalakshmi, is in his Yoga Nidra in this bed which is formed by the coils of Adisesha. Adisesha spreads himself into a bed on which Mahavishnu reclines, and at his feet is Sri Mahalakshmi. This is the milky ocean, the Kshirabdi, where the Devatas, Indra, Brahma, Agni and many of those Devatas run when there is a need. When they are caught, when they are in trouble, this is the Kshirabdi where they rush to and seek refuge. And all the commands that he gave there, the advices that he gave there, are again not useful to us because that is after all the coastal side, the oceans that they are. And it is going to be very strong breeze that what he said is not going to be audible to us. So that is also out of the list. Now Vaikuntham his advices are of no use to us. So is the case with Ksheerabdi also. Now the third is the stage when, out of his utmost compassion towards us, Mahavishnu took many, many forms, the avataras, quite literally descending down. An avataram means to step down from a higher plane. So Mahavishnu took many, many avataras, came down in order to help us. And the most popular list has 10 avataras, the Dashavataras. Now the Vaishnavite Acharyas evaluate one avatara at a time and make it very easy for us to understand that of the 10 avataras, 9 avataras and their advices and their words are of no use to us. The Vaishnavite Acharyas and the commentators, when they have a title in hand, their knowledge is so supreme that they can twist and turn evidences and facts the way they want. Their scholarship is so much that when they talk about Varaha Avatara and Varaha Purana, they'll have approved reasons to say that all other avatars are of no use to us. Beautifully they explain why of the 10 avatars, Varaha Avataram is very, very special to them. So the list starts with Matsya Avatara. We all know that grand form of Mahavishnu as a fish, as he floated, as he managed to retrieve the Vedas. They say that he was a Matsya, a fish, and he was living in the deep oceans. Whatever he said there is not going to reach us. As mere mortals who do not deep dive, and for people who are grounded quite literally, those words that he spoke as Matsya is of no use. Let us strike it down. Now the next in order is Kurma Avatara, the turtle form that Mahavishnu took in order to hold on to the Mahameru as the churning of the Ksheerabdi happened. When Amrita Mantanam happened, where the Meru Parvatam was the mattu there, kept there to grind. And so when it started sinking because of the weight, Mahavishnu took this form of Kurma. He came there, he gave it a support and lifted the Meru Parvatam on his back. Now the Acharya says, well and good, he did rescue, but observe the nature of a turtle. It can live both in water and on ground. Now come what may, don't believe somebody when they have one leg on the ground and the other in water. That is not a safe way to take an advice from. Those are the people you should be very safe with. So let us strike this avatara also off. So the advices that he gave as Kurma Murti is also not really worth depending upon. That's striked off. They skip Varaha Avatara for the moment, though he is in the chronology. We need to discuss him at length, so his discussions are reserved now. The fourth in list is, of course, Nrsimha Avataram, the half man, half animal form that he took, Narasimha. And of course, he came down immediately in response to the prayers of a little kid, Prahalada. He was very quick in responding, and justice was served immediately on the face. There was no delay at all. What about his commands? What about his advices? That's when the Acharyas again warn us, come what may, don't believe somebody who takes two different forms, one above his neck and the other different from what it is from there. He's a combination, right at his neck, the throat, through which all these advices comes, he's taken two different forms. So what is above the neck is different from what is below it. This is a very, not a very interesting combination to believe upon. So let's give upon Narasimha also. So his words were also struck off. Now next in order is Vamanavatara. Be very, very careful when you take words from a poet. When they say something, always look for a deeper interpretation of it. Like how in Vamanavatara, he came as this little kid, hardly 3 feet tall. He walked into the Yagashalai of Bali Chakravarti. Mahabali, who underestimated him, thought he is a little kid. What would he do with those 3 feet of land? He didn't imagine him to grow so tall and measure the entire universe in 1 feet and the sky up there in the 2nd feet, and wanted Mahabali himself to be offered for the 3rd feet. So that is like the words of the Kavis, Mahakavis. When you look at it at that level, on face value it would be different. But if you start interpreting it, it will be very, very different. So Vamanavatara words, those advices and commands that he delivered as Vamanamurti is also not to be believed. Let's forget it. The 6th avatara is that of Parashurama. Whenever somebody is wielding a weapon, his advices and commands is not going to fulfill us. When somebody is always holding on to the astra and whose character is valued by his fairiness. Somebody whose krodham is what is his address, those words are of no value at all. தமிழ்லையுமே சொல்லுவாங்க, கோவத்தில் இருக்கும்போது சொல்கிற வார்த்தையெல்லாம் ஏற்றுக்கக்கூடாது, ஒரு வேகத்தில் கடகடன் வார்த்தைகள்லாம் வந்துடும், அதனால் கோபத்தில் இருக்கும்போது சொல்கிற வார்த்தைகளை let's not value it. So Parashurama Avataram is also given up on. Next comes Rama Avatara. He is Satyasanda. We say it is always Okamata. His words are like only once. I mean, there is no second opinion on it. When he says something, it is fulfilled. That's the promise, right? Even there, the Acharyas ask us, well, Rama's qualities, characters, nothing can equate to it. He is Purushottama, no doubt about it. But even when he was alive and active here, who were those who actually listened to his advice? His own wife didn't. His very fond brother didn't. So, if you search through the pages of Ramayana, it is only the school of monkeys that followed him, listened to him. Those are the words worthy to be believed by monkeys. It is not going to be use of us. So, let's give up on Rama Avatara also. Next is Balarama, who is always remembered as a person who is intoxicated. Unmatta Rupi. As he was very playful along with Krishna and otherwise, he used to do a lot of Madhupanam. And his words, I mean, it's common, general knowledge. When somebody is intoxicated, their words are like, fine, that's it. You don't believe it completely. So let's give up on Balarama also. Krishna, no comments to be made. We all know, from the time he was born, he promised his parents something, he immediately changed from what he was. He appeared with 4 arms, immediately he shifted over to 2-armed. And what he did was all completely Maya Sutra. He had the threats to puppet people as he wanted. His words can be interpreted in any way as you want. His promises are all, we know how deep those promises were. So Krishna Avataram is also not to be believed for common mortals like that. Moreover, the Bhagavad Gita that he gave, the best of the teachings that he gave, the first beneficiary of it, Arjuna, himself didn't follow it. Probably he was not a good tutor. So let's give up on Krishna Avatara also. The last in list is Kalki Avatara, whose Shabda is yet to be heard. We are still waiting to have a darshan of that Avataram. So it is like the Akashavani. You don't know who it is, where he is, what is he going to tell us. So that is also to be given upon. So in this long list of 10 Avataras, the only one that has not been discussed about is Varaha Avataram. Varaha Avataram is now taken up for a retrospection, and the Acharyas conclude for a set of reasons that if you want to depend on the advices of Avataras of Mahavishnu, please listen to Varaha Murti. Why so? The essence of Varaha Avatara, the reason for his Varaha Avataram, Varaha Swarupam, was to protect Bhuma Devi and bring her out. As she was caught by the demons, hidden in the deep oceans, Mahavishnu took this form of the wild boar, the Varaha, jumped deep inside the oceans, managed to bring her out. And many Alvars in their beautiful works have praised Varaha Avataram so much, because he immediately attended to the needs of Bhuma Devi, who was his own consort. So his love for his devotees, love for people who are dependent on him is very, very evident. Unlike Krishna, who kept all his Gopastris waiting, unlike Krishna, who was late to attend to the calls of Gopastris, Varaha Swami was very immediate in plunging into the oceans to protect Bhuma Devi and bring her out. And the love that he had for her, he took her on his laps as he was coming out. He placed her so gently on his lap. And he said, as we go out, for all the tiredness that you're carrying, as I see you so tired and damp, don't worry, I'll have a long conversation with you. Ask me all that you've been wanting to ask. Let's have a very warm conversation as we go up, so both of us don't feel tired. Now, this is how you attend to the needs of a devotee. When you see a devotee who is weary and tired, Mahavishnu, in the Varaha form, offers his lap for you to lay down, rest down, and touch upon you warmly through his advices. So this is how exactly he handled Bhuma Devi as they were coming out of the oceans. And in that conversation, Varaha Murti declares a few promises and elaborates a long story promising Bhuma Devi that of all the other ways to attain him, he says, people who sing my praise, people who sing my glory, may they be born of any caste, any community. When they chant my names, sing it out loudly and dance in happiness, nothing like that to attract me. He says, let them dance and sing my names. The most easiest way to win over me is to sing my praise. And this, according to the Vaishnavite Acharyas, was taken as a very serious advice by Bhuma Devi, who fulfilled this interest of Varaha Murti when she herself came down as Goda. When she came down as Andal, Andal is the incarnation of Bhuma Devi. So when she was born as Andal at Srivilliputturu, she sang his praise. All that she did was to sing his praise. As she started composing Thirupavai, the set of 30 verses, the divine poems of 30 verses which are chanted during the Margazhi month, in every verse, almost every verse, she commands her friends, advises her friends to sing his praise. Parkadalul payyattuindra paraman adipadi. She asks them to sing the praise. Ongi ulahalanda uttaman per padi. பாடிக்கிட்டுருங்க. பாடுதல் comes in almost every other composition in Thirupavai. கேசவன் தன்னை பாடவும் நீ வாய்த்திரவாய். கோவிந்தா உந்தன்னை பாடிப்பறை கொண்டு யான் பெரு சம்மானம். So in many occasions, வாயினால் பாடி மனதினால் சிந்திக்க, wherever possible she keeps asking her friends to sing the praise. So she came down as Varaha, Bhuma Devi's Swarupam. And in Nachiyar Tirumozhi, which is the next Prabandham by Andal, when she sings the praise of Ranganatha Swami, she says it was Sri Ranganatha who came down as Varaha Avataram, who came down as Varaha Swami. Masudambil Nirvara, Manamila Panniyam, Teshudaya Devar, Thiruvaranga Chelvanar, Pesi Iruppanahal Perkavum Perade. She says, many eons back, when Bhuma Devi was kept hidden under the ocean water, and she felt lost, and she was so tired, பாசி தூர்த்து கிடந்த பார்மகட்கு உடம்பெல்லாம் பாசி பூத்து போச்சான். When you drop an object in a tank of water and you don't attend to it, you see algae and moss developing over it, right? அதுதான் பாசி பூத்து போகிறது. So when Bhuma Devi was brought out, she was all moss on her. பாசி தூர்த்து கிடந்த பார்மகட்கு. Then you can imagine how long she was kept hidden there. பாசி தூர்த்து கிடந்த பார்மகள் is Bhuma Devi. பார்மகட்கு பண்டொரு நாள், many years back, அன்னிக்கு மாசுடம்பில் நீர்வாரா மானமிலா பன்னியாம். He came down as this Varaham. Who would ever want to dress up like a boar after all? Now, it's considered to be lowly in the list of birth. In the evolution cycle, it is somewhere down there. But when there is a need to attend to his devotees' calls, he chooses the best form. However lowly it is considered, by the meters that we have set after all, he has no second thought in taking up that form. He happily dressed up as a Varaha. And that's when she says, Masudambil Nirvara Manamila Panniya. He was also dripping water because she has been kept hidden there. And the Divya Dampati's qualities are when the couple match the dress that they are wearing. That's in fact said. Best couple are those who dress up in a matching way. If Bhuma Devi is going to be dripping water, he should also be that. So he came out as Masudambil Nirvara Manamila Panniya. When a pig stays in a slump of water for long, and tries to come out of it, you can see water oozing out from its body. That's how Ranganatha was when he took this form of a boar. Like as if he has also been there in the slump for many years, he came out with his body dripping with water. Masudambil Nirvara Manamila Panniyam Tesudaya Tevar. The moment we start what is this? Is this the kind of choice that he had? Andal immediately says, Tesudaya Tevar. He is a Tejasvi. May it be so that he dressed himself up so fancily like a pig. But that tejas was immense. Teshudaya Devar Thiruvaranga Chelvanar. In that form, as Ranganatha came with all his tejas as Varaha Murti, Peshi Iruppanahal Perkavum Perade. She makes a promise. Don't undermine the words that he spoke to Bhuma Devi when he took this form of a Varaha Murti. Perkavum Perade. You can never ever destroy it. Those are inscribed on the stones of the Meru Parvatam. Nobody can ever erase it. He says he made a promise then. That promise that he made to Bhuma Devi is worth remembered every day. For the Vaishnavites of Ramanuja Sampradaya, this conversation that Varaha Swami had with Bhuma Devi, the promise that he made to Bhuma Devi as he was approached with questions, is considered to be the Varaha Charama Slokam, which is to be remembered every day. Those who have been initiated into the Ramanuja school, they are taught this mantra by their acharyas and they chant it. There are 3 Charama Slokams in total. The first is, of course, that Varaha Swami told to Bhuma Devi. The second is what is called as Rama Charama Slokam, which is a part of Sri Ramayana, where Rama talks about him being the refuge to anybody who seeks solace. But that was given to Vibhishana. That was a conversation with Vibhishana, who is a Rakshasa by birth. The third Charama Sloka is Krishna Charama Slokam, the very popular Sarvadharman Paridhyaja Slokam from Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, which was, of course, delivered by Krishna to Arjuna, who himself wasn't a very suitable student. Here you have the teacher who hasn't changed. Sriman Narayana was the teacher in all the 3 cases. But the most deserving student was when he was Varaha. Varaha Charama Slokam, unlike Rama and Krishna Charama Slokam, was delivered by Mahavishnu, and the first beneficiary of it was none but Sridevi, Bhuma Devi here, his own consort. So the weight of Varaha Charama Slokam, as Andal says, Pesi Iruppanahal, those that he spoke, the words that he spoke then as Varaha Swami, Perkavum Perade, you cannot erase it off. That's how strong the Varaha Charama Slokam is. As it is a tradition to chant those slokas only by the initiated, I'm not getting into the sloka as such. It is in fact 2 parts, 2 slokas that are put together and chanted as Varaha Charama Slokam. But the most important phrase in the slokam is Aham Smarami Madbhaktam. He says, I'm not giving them the duty to think about me when all their senses are crippling down. I'll make sure I think about them then. Aham Smarami Madbhaktam. There is no necessity that the mortals that they are, who are all caught in their physical frame, where the senses, the bodily capacity goes down as they age, when they lose their senses one after the other, and those very challenging last moments, all through their life they have been thinking about me. They have been chanting my name when they were capable of. When everything is falling down, when they are crippling, and that last few moments, he says, I'll make sure I will remember them. Aham Smarami Madbhaktam. This is only a part of the phrase there from the sloka, which is extremely commented upon, quoted in many, many commentaries. This is the promise that he made to Bhuma Devi. Aham Smarami Madbhaktam. This, in fact, goes on to be one of the words of the 6 commands given by Kanchi Varadaraja Swami to Ramanujacharya. When Ramanuja was still not a Vaishnavite, when he was still with the Advaita school of philosophy, with a lot of doubts for himself as to the commentaries of the Advaita Acharyas didn't seem to fulfill him, he had certain doubts which were offered at the feet of Varadaraja Swami of Kanchipuram. But even before getting the questions directly, he answered it. There are 6 such commands that he gave, one of which is Antima Smriti Varjanam. He says this particular school comes out of this practice that moksham is granted to people who think about me in their last moments. That is not possible. That is not how it can work. You will not know under what circumstances you breathe your last. Nobody will know it. The day, time and the moment is all completely unaware of. That's Brahma Rahasyam. Only he knows it. So get rid of it. That's not needed. Antima Smriti Varjanam. He said, you don't worry about thinking about me in the end. And that is in fact reflected from these words by Varaha Swami, where he says, Aham Smarami Madbhaktam. When I certify somebody to be my bhakta, I will make sure I will think about him. Because he's been chanting my names whenever he could. And from there, Bhuma Devi asks, are you so fond of your devotees singing your praise? And he says, nothing like singing my praise. That is the most easiest way to win over me. If somebody is looking for an opportunity or a tool to seek apology, let them chant my names. Let them keep chanting my name. Nothing like that to make it happy for me. And there, in order to elucidate this statement, Varaha Swami dwells deep. This is like explaining a part C question where you'll always have to substantiate it with an example. Varaha Swami goes in for a very fitting example. An episode from the past where he says about a devotee whose capacity was only to sing his praise. To sing his praise, there is nothing that barricades you. Now we have discussed about the Vedas. We started with the Vedas and then went on to Itihasas, Puranas and more. As I told you, one of the constraints with the Vedas that it is voluminous. It has a lot of divisions in it. Not everybody is permitted to chant the Vedas. In some cases, some are not even allowed to listen to it. So these constraints are there. The language is also very challenging. You should master the language first and then only you can read it. And even when you read it, there are multiple interpretations to it. So with all these constraints, Vedas become too much for all of us to approach. So he said, the quintessence of it is after all my name. Don't worry. My name is what has elaborated into the 4 Vedas. So just keep chanting my name. That's enough. This was made a common tool irrespective of caste, community, creed, gender, race, anything, nationality, nothing comes in the way to chant his name. He said, I'm making this very easy. So for people who sing my name, he also says at times, people who master the Vedas end up in going behind the scholarship and develop newly found arrogance because of the mastery. So at times, even learning a lot pulls you down the ladder. At times. Now, this has been again chanted, discussed by many acharyas. Kalvi is also looked upon as a burden. At some point, you will have to get rid of that also. The knowledge there is to ease things out for you. But immediately, newfound knowledge invites a lot of trouble by bringing in the sense of arrogance. I know something better than somebody else. I have mastered so many books, so many kalakshepams I have done. I have commented on this, I have read that, I have read this. So even that becomes a burden. But for somebody who has not gone through all of those, who only knows the nama, he says, this is all I know. I'm happy with it. I keep chanting it. There is no tinge of arrogance in him or her. So he says, it makes it easy for you to win over all these traps. And may you be happy just chanting my name. And he says, now listen to the story of somebody who was from an outcast, who was socially from the lowest or lower than the lowest community, who was a musician by birth. Now back in those days, bards were considered to be out of the societal strata because their life is dependent on people who are wealthy, kings or landlords. They go to them, sing their praise, dance in front of them. In fact, that was considered a menial job. So they were generally not brought into the mainstream society. More so, they were also nomads. They kept moving from one place to another. They were always in searches of people who could afford them, local kings and chieftains whose praise they could sing and make a living out of it. So the bards were considered outcasts back in those days. So this particular story is about a bard of that sort, but nevertheless, he didn't make a living out of singing mortal beings. He only sang for my love. His name, in fact, we don't know what his parents named him. We only know how Perumal called him. Perumal used to call him Nampaduvan, my own singer, somebody who sings my praise. Now imagine somebody to be certified as Perumal's own. That was how this gentleman was blessed. We don't know his real name. We only address to him as Nampaduvan because that was a name given by Perumal. In Vaishnava tradition, this prefix Nam becomes very, very special. Only when Ranganatha Swami addresses somebody as my own, this prefix Nam gets added there. Of all the Alvars, there is only one Alvar who is called as Namma Alvar. Of all the Pillais, there is only one gentleman who is called as Nampillai. Of all the Jiyars, there is only one Namjiyar. So that is the bonding that Ranganatha in fact had with him. With the Alvar, with this Pillai, with that Jiyar. So here is this Paduvan, or the one who is a singer, who became Ranganatha's own, and hence Nampaduvan. He lived in this very sacred little town called Thirukkurungudi, which is on the foothills of Mahendragiri Parvatam. This particular shrine today is 20-30 kilometers from Tirunelveli, down south. A beautiful picturesque little town, right at the foothills of Western Ghats. All that you need to do is to just climb the hill up there and get down on the other side, you will enter Kerala. It is right on the border. So it is always the Kerala weather that is seen here. A very picturesque, unpolluted, unurbanized, beautiful, beautiful town. The kind of postcard photo types of background is what you get to see there. That's how beautiful this town is. And there, at the center of the village, is a temple for Mahavishnu, who is considered to be the fullness of being handsome. If there is a quantification for being handsome, he is the one who it is. He is in fact called as Sundara Paripurnan, the one who's full of beauty. Handsomeness reaches its limits right in him. That's how beautiful he is, so captivating he is. And there in this little town, in the outskirts of this town, many, many kilometers away from the town, lived Nampaduvan, who was not allowed inside the temple. But a staunch Vaishnavite that he was, every Ekadashi for him was the Vratam day. Early in the morning, he would used to wake up, take a dip in the Nambi Tirtham and apply Thiruman Kappu. All through the day, he will fast. Late evening, he will start on his journey to go to the village. Because back then, they were the people who were not allowed on the main streets in broad daylight. So around midnight time, a little after midnight, walking so many kilometers down with his own Veenai and Thalam, all the way he'll be singing the praise of Sriman Narayana. He would reach Thirukkurungudi, middle of the night, a little past midnight. Because he won't be allowed inside the temple, he will station himself in one corner of the Sannadhi street. From there, in front of the temple, he used to sing. Sing for the rest of the night. Kill the time there. And before people arrived, he used to take leave and go back to his village to finish his Dwadasi Parani. This was his practice ever since he had known about himself. This great devotee, somebody who was an outcast, who lived several miles away from the village, did this every Ekadashi. His devotion was so strong, he didn't bother about not being allowed in the broad daylight. He never bothered about walking inside the temple. For him, this by itself was a great gift. He thought, I've been allowed into this Mahapunya Kshetram in the middle of the night. Who would get this? I'm standing here in the middle of the night singing his praise. Anybody else will get this? No. What a blessed Janma I have. Now, this is the approach to life that would give you being contented. This was a natural practice in Indian society. At least as somebody who was born in the 80s, I have seen my own grandma and mom advise us always telling about when we say that we don't have something, they would always show us this example of somebody who's not having what we have and ask us to think that we are really blessed. That's the easiest way to get contented. With social media taking over and every day you have some new thing coming up with somebody and you also want that, this endless list for want is just growing and driving us all crazy. On the other hand, you have such beautiful examples where this most seasoned Jivatma, though we think so bad about, we think sorry for him, we think like, oh my God, he lacks all this. He was so contented with this opportunity that he got every Ekadashi. He was thankful to Mahavishnu that this Ekadashi went past well. He was so happy that his Vratam could be taken care of by Mahavishnu. He was so happy that all through the night I sang his praise. And taking leave humbly, he will go back to his residence only to wait for the next one fortnight to looking forward for the next Ekadashi in line. As this tradition was going, one of those Ekadashis, it was the month of Kartikai, the Ekadashi which falls before the most celebrated Vaikunta Ekadashi, the Kartikai Ekadashi, Suklapaksha Ekadashi. As it was the tradition, Nampaduvan woke up early in the morning, did all his traditional ablutions and applying Thiruman Kappu, wearing his Tulasi Dalam and praying to Mahavishnu, continuing his fast, taking the Sankalpam. Everything went on till middle of the night, early night. Late in the evening, after taking his evening ablutions, carrying his Veenai and Thalam, he started singing the praise as he left his residential quarters and took up on his long journey towards this beautiful town called Thirukkurungudi.